On today's show, the Eastern Conference whip around week continues as we're going to talk Celtics. We're going to talk Pacers, the two teams that were near the top of the Eastern Conference this year, but both had their 2025-2026 seasons dramatically altered because of Achilles tears to their stars. That's right. Tony E's going to stop by. John Karalis is going to stop by, and we're going to talk about those teams next right here on Locked On Cavs.
You are Locked On Cavs, your daily Cleveland Cavaliers podcast.
Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, everybody? My name's Danny Cunningham, and you might know me from my time covering the Cleveland Cavaliers, places like my Substack, The Inside Shot, Cleveland Magazine, 92.3 The Fan, and a number of other stops along the way. And I just want to say thank you to you for making Locked On Cavs your first listen today and every day. You can find the show anywhere you get your podcasts, Apple, Spotify, or anywhere else. Make sure to drop us a 5-star rating, leave us a nice review, and of course, be a friend. Tell a friend about Locked On Cavs. Make sure you're subscribed. Make sure a friend is subscribed as well. And if you're watching the show on YouTube as we get started here, do us a favor. Hit that thumbs up button for us. Click subscribe and hit that notification bell so you don't miss the latest Locked On Cavs content. A proud part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And today's episode is brought to you by Monarch Money. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNBA, that is LOCKEDON NBA at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. John Karalis stops by today. We talk Boston Celtics, Jayson Tatum's Achilles injury. How much does that change what the Celtics are going to look like this year? Also, no Kristaps Porzingis anymore. No Drew Holiday anymore. This is a Celtics team that is going to look drastically different than it did last year. They are not, certainly this year, at least in my opinion and in the opinion of John, as you will find out in a minute, a true Eastern Conference contender. So thankful that he was able to stop by. And then coming up a little bit later in the podcast, our friend Tony East, who, of course, we know very, very well from the Cavs taking on the Indiana Pacers in the Eastern Conference semifinals earlier this summer. We talk what the Pacers are going to look like, losing Myles Turner, the Achilles injury to Tyrese Haliburton, and whether or not they're going to take a huge step back, or are they just kind of going to be average as they wait for Tyrese Haliburton to recover and be back next year? So those guys had great insight to all of that and so much more. So without anything else from me, here's my conversation first with John Karalis. And joining me now, John Karalis from the Locked On Celtics podcast. Many of you know him. Some of you love him. Probably more of you, if your Cavs fans, don't like him quite as much, but does a terrific job for us covering the Celtics over there. And John, this has been a off season that's been, I think, eventful. It's fair to say for the Celtics as they look to embark on what I think everyone envisions is going to be a gap year. So how's the summer in Boston been for the C's?
Yeah, I think, well, I can tell the Cavs fans are going to like me a lot more now because I'm going to be less arrogant about the team. I don't think they're going to be good. Like, it's not going to, anyway. Yeah, it's been an interesting summer. The team just got officially sold. It's going to be a tough year as far as, like, they're not going to win a lot of games. They're better than the worst teams in the East. They're nowhere near the top of the East anymore. So they're going to be, I think, very mediocre. They have enough good players where they're the outright tank isn't going to, like, they don't have enough to just flat out win 20 games. So it's just preparing yourself for the ups and downs, but more the how do the Celtics find the guys that fit, that you can put around Tatum and Brown and White, presumably all three of those guys, when Tatum is eventually healthy, and can they find the guys that do that in a way that puts them back into the conversation that at the top of the conference.
So bringing up Tatum, obviously the Achilles injury in the second round against the New York Knicks. I believe it was game 4 in which that happened in the middle of May. And we don't know what he's going to look like when he gets back on the floor. I think that his game probably does translate to being able to, and of course his age too, which matters a lot in this conversation.
Yeah.
I think like he should be able to bounce back and be at least pretty close to what he was, which of course is one of the best players in the NBA. Is there any plan in Boston to allow him anywhere near the court for game action near the end of this year? Does it matter what the Celtics are doing, or would they just be better off by saying, you know what, we will see you in training camp in September of 2026 and we'll go at it then, but don't risk things now?
I literally asked that question to the team president a couple of weeks ago, last week when they had a community event. Tatum was there, he was walking around, and basically the question was, if he's cleared by, February, March, is the team prepared to put him on the floor? And the response was, that's a down the road question. What I know about JT is he's going to do everything he can to put us in a position to make that decision. So that tells me they haven't ruled him out, right? Because they could just easily be like, no, he's done for the season, just like the Pacers did with Haliburton.
Right.
So I would expect the Celtics to consider it. I personally think that he's in a unique position when it comes to this injury. His age at 27, complete prime of his life. He had the surgery the next morning, like almost immediately. The best guy in the business with an innovative procedure did it. It's a procedure that's known to get people back quicker. So I think all of this stuff puts him in a position to actually come back faster than many people expect. Now, will he be ready for NBA action? That's a question, because it's not just your body, it's your mind. You have to trust yourself, trust your body to, not fail you again. Jayson Tatum took a normal step in a basketball court, and his leg basically exploded, and you have to trust your body not to do that again. But I would not be surprised if he's back in February or March. And I would invite that, because I would love to see him get NBA action, get back on the court, even in limited action, and take that month or two as the next step in your rehab. Not even saying come back for the playoffs and maybe the Celtics make a late run. I don't care about that. It's get him on the court, get his brain right, get him back used to the speed, get him back used to everything. Trust yourself, and then now take the summer and understand. Maybe the Celtics have played a little bit differently. Maybe they've upped their pace. Maybe they're playing a little bit of faster style. You can go and take your summer and just gear up for the next season. But I'd love to see him get some reps on the floor and not have his first taste of NBA basketball since the injury be opening night 2026.
Right. It sounds almost as if him being on the floor in, the spring of 2026 would more be about what he could do in the fall of 2026 as a way to, because there is going to be an adjustment period. You're going to have to work the kinks out, as you said. Like, that does, to me, if possible, sound like the right plan. I just don't think that it's, and I do wonder too, should it matter where the Celtics are at? Because I look at them and I still think that they've got some really strong top end talent. Like, Jaylen Brown isn't all of a sudden, he's not taking the year off too. Like, he's going to be really good. Derek White is still a very good NBA player. So I do look at Boston as a team that probably has a wide range of outcomes. Like, if they won 43, 44, 45 games, I don't think anyone should be surprised. But if Jaylen Brown has to miss a month because of a sprained ankle or something like that, and they end up winning 32, 33 games, I don't think anybody should be surprised. So do you think that that wide range of outcomes should have any impact there?
No, I don't think it has any impact at all. Like, I don't even care what the final win total is. It might matter to the Joe Mazzulla detractors who still don't know if he can coach and all of that stuff, and are kind of confused by his extension. There's certainly a faction of those people in Boston. So if the Celtics win 45 games with this roster, and people would be like, wow, they actually were above 500 with the worst front court in the NBA, then that would be important as far as just the outside stuff. But inside the team, it really is about finding the depth pieces, finding who your starters are going to be around Tatum, Brown, Derek White. Then, how deep can you make your bench? So one of the things that I really would hope, like, if Jayson Tatum comes back, like, you could actually answer some of those questions, like Luka Garza, you're taking a flyer on him. Well, if you have an opportunity to play 4 weeks with, hey, let's run some pick and rolls. Let's just run a few of those with Jayson Tatum and just kind of see maybe it's not going to be, because it's not going to be fully Jayson Tatum, but why not see if you have the opportunity and he's medically cleared and this is part of his rehab, then let's run some stuff. Let's run some unique things. Let's just kind of see what these guys, how they might like each other, because you have that opportunity. Anytime you can get answers to questions this upcoming season, that's going to be super important for Boston. We all know they're not winning a championship this year. Can you find enough answers to the questions that you have where you can build a contender for the year after?
More conversation is part of the Eastern Conference whip around week straight ahead. But first, today's episode brought to you by Monarch Money. Did you know that most people can't name all their financial accounts or even what they're worth, whether it's 401ks, properties, investments? They might not know. And when you don't have the full picture of your net worth, you can end up leaving some money on the table. That's why Monarch Money is there. It's an all-in-one personal finance tool that brings your entire financial life together in one clean, easy to use interface right on your laptop or on your phone. Monarch does the heavy lifting for you, where you can link all of your accounts in minutes. You can see clear data, visuals, get smart categorization of your spending, and finally feel like you are totally in control of your money. It's your money. You should be in control. And you can do that without ever having to touch a spreadsheet. You know, most people might link all their accounts to Monarch Money, and you know what they're going to realize? Oh, I have a few subscriptions I didn't really realize that I was paying for. I wasn't using them. I didn't know that money was going out the window every month. Canceling those alone can save you money each and every month. Monarch makes it so much easy. So don't let the financial opportunity slip through the cracks. Right now, use code LOCKEDONNBA, that is LOCKEDON NBA, at monarchmoney.com in your browser for half off your first year. That's right, 50% off your first year at monarchmoney.com just by using code LOCKEDONNBA. Once again, that is LOCKEDON NBA to get 50% off your first year at monarchmoney.com. I think that's probably the best way a team in their situation could look at it. And then, so we know Tatum going to miss at least most of next season.
That's right.
The other stuff that happened in Boston this summer, Drew Holiday, no longer a member of the Celtics. He was traded in a cost-cutting move. Kristaps Porzingis, no longer a member of the Celtics, also traded in a cost-cutting move. How do you think Boston did in those trades?
I think, obviously, the Porzingis move was strictly money. So you did well enough to look, they're under the second apron. So mission accomplished, right? That you had to do it. You did it. That's fine. I think the way Porzingis' season ended, I don't think they had any other choice. Like, it's not like they were going to get value for him. Everybody kind of understands now with Porzingis, he's going to miss a lot of time, no matter what you do, no matter how you use him. He's going to miss a lot of time. You can't play him on back-to-backs, and you just never know what his availability is going to be in the playoffs. So damaged goods, great when he's fully healthy and available, but you just don't know when that's going to happen. So salary dump makes perfect sense. I think they did pretty well with the Holiday trade, because that was a lot of time and money left on that deal for a guy his age, and for Portland to kind of come around and be like, yeah, no, we're into that. To get Simons, like, you saved some money and you got a somewhat valuable player in that he can be moved for the right price. Like, if you're not asking a ton for Simons, if you're saying, hey, look, no, we'll take a lesser talent, you know, maybe a team can talk themselves into, hey, scoring punch, deadline time. Like, I think there is an opportunity to kind of flip him and get some value, maybe dip under the tax if that's part of the plan. So for what it was, I think Brad Stevens did pretty well.
So I'm glad you brought up the tax, because that's what I did want to ask about next. The Celtics, as of right now, I believe, are roughly $12 million over the tax, and they are a team that I do think could probably benefit in a gap year like this one, where, as you said, they're not going to win the title. Very bold take by you, but how beneficial would it be for them to try and shave off another $12 million from their bottom line and get under the tax for the first time in a long time, in a year that is a gap year? And do you expect them to try and pursue that?
I think if they can, If you can flip Simons and somehow like get 2 players, get one useful player, get one guy that you reroute somebody else to somebody else, and you dip under that tax, I think that'll be valuable, especially because now you get a tax payment. You get money from the league if you get under the tax. So I think for a team that's been that expensive and they just sold the team, this guy who's paying somewhere around $7 billion for this team in stages. If you can, especially if you're Brad Stevens, you're like, hey, buddy, look what I got for you, buddy. I got you this many millions in a tax payment. The league's paying you this year. And like Brad's extend his contract. He's not going anywhere. So yeah, I think they can. If they can, they will. It's tough because the top end money is always going to be very high.
Right.
So I expect them to give it a shot. And if they can do that with Simons, great. If they get close, then I can see them, a trade deadline. Who's going to take Xavier Tillman for nothing? We'll throw you a second round pick. Let's make this work. And so, yes, but if there's no takers for Anthony Simons and you're kind of stuck, then there's nothing you can do. I don't see them going full fire sale and making a mistake to get under the tax. So if they can, they will, but don't go crazy.
All right. Last thing, I'll get you out of here with this. Let's say that you somehow, some way become the guy in charge of the Celtics and you get a do-over for this summer. Do you do anything differently than what Brad Stevens in the front office did in Boston? I'm
going to say no, because I know that you had to get under the second apron. Like listening to Brad Stevens talk about the second apron, it's like he saw a ghost. He's like, those penalties were real, man. And like the Celtics knew they were coming, but like not being able to make certain types of trades, and you just have to. And so could you have maybe gone around the league and could you have gotten a better player than Anthony Simon? I don't know. Like it's very easy to say like, oh, I would have held out for this and maybe, would have tried to get a better this or that. In the end, the Celtics accomplished what they needed to financially. They're getting their flyers on the few guys that they have. I mean, maybe I would have pursued a better big earlier on. Maybe I would have made a different pick in the draft. But I would say like 90% of the stuff is, especially not knowing what Brad knows about who was actually interested in all that stuff. I feel like he did a pretty good job under very rough circumstances. It's tough. This is our first, like, the Celtics are one of the test cases for the second apron. So I've got no frame of reference to be like, well, Brad did a good job compared to other teams that have been in this situation. I don't have that level of comparison. So Brad has set the precedent. So I won't know exactly how good a job he's done until other teams that are super expensive getting under the second apron make their moves and be like, oh no, they did this better or worse than the Celtics. So you need time under this new system to really figure out exactly where the Celtics, how they did this offseason.
Well, I can't wait for you and I to get together in a couple of years and compare the second apron reset. Who did it better between the Cavs and the Celtics? Because it's coming for them at some point. I don't know when, but it will.
I know that podcast listeners are dying for redoing offseason moves, cap minutia from 2-3 years ago. Like that.
Yes.
I mean, what a hook to bait for a future podcast by you.
It's going to be great. It is going to be great. John, thank you so much for doing this. Very much appreciate the time on Locked On Cavs, man.
You got it, man. Happy to be here.
And joining us now, somebody that I think a lot of you know pretty well at this point after the postseason, Tony East does a fantastic job over at Locked On Pacers, and I think things are rather different right now for the Indiana Pacers than they were the last time we spoke, Tony, because Tyrese Haliburton, who had a fantastic postseason, tears his Achilles in Game 7 of the Finals. Myles Turner also thought he had a pretty good postseason, now a member of the Milwaukee Bucks. So what's going on in Indianapolis?
The gap year term was coined by the Celtics. The Pacers are also in that group now, right? And it's a stinky term because the Pacers are still pretty young. like a gap year for them is different than a gap year for Boston in that playing their young players are still playing primarily, basically outside of Siakam and McConnell, their best players. So they'll still be scrappy and annoying and win 40 games or something like that. But their ceiling is way lower. Their chance of winning a playoff round is minuscule. So your priorities have to change, even if that by default you have too much talent to lose. And that's kind of the odd little balancing act that they're going to have to do this year.
So how does having too much talent to lose find like that weird balancing act of expectations are reasonably not high? Like I don't think anybody inside that organization, I know nobody nationally, I know myself, I have gone out on a limb and said the Pacers are not going back to the finals next year. I know that's a pretty bold take, and I'm not sure you agree with that one or not, but how do they balance those expectations, growing their young guys, but also knowing that this could be an opportunity, considering that they did make that trade during the finals for their first round pick next year, which had nothing to do with Tyrese Haliburton's Achilles and was kind of just a tax move more than anything that turned out to be a stroke of luck. How do they balance maybe trying to grow the young guys they have versus maybe taking this as a true gap year and maybe finding themselves in the lottery?
Yeah, it's interesting because even like pretend Haliburton is healthy and Myles Turner is back on the team, right? Nemhard and Mathurin and I guess Toppin, he's older but less experienced, and Ben Shepherd and Jarris Walker and Isaiah Jackson, like all those guys are guys that even if they made no free agency additions, you'd say, oh, they should be better, right? Or like at least as good as they were last year. And so the Pacers should get some improvement there. All those players are going to play still for the Pacers this year, right? And so if you shift your season completely to development, which I mean, who knows what the Pacers true center will be in terms of that. They still are doing that. Aaron Nesmith as well. That's their best players. Like the only guy I didn't say who's like kind of good and young is Johnny Furphy. Like everything else is not important in terms of really like long-term focused. Maybe their rookie Cam Jones, we'll see how good he is. So it's really strange that they have to meld those two things. Whereas like if you went into the season and said you're trying to win, that's how I would have thought they'd be better, is that they just have a lot of young talent that could make them internally slightly better than last season. So now the question is, can those players be good enough to win them games? The East sucks, right? Like, you know, the Cavs know well, like they are very heavy favorites to at least make the conference finals just because of how bad the conference is. Like they're playing on Christmas and opening night against the same team because there's only two teams. So like who is saying that the Pacers can't win however many games just by playing their young guys, right? And so that is kind of the tough reality where you're right that like if you truth serum to everyone in the organization, like look, the BYU kid, I don't know how to say it, Debansa, AJ Debansa, yeah, like oh the Boozer kid at Duke, like look at that, Pascal Siakam. If you could like very 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 slightly tweak your ankle and we sit you for a month, that'd be great. Like yeah, that's like kind of an ideal, but they can't. They're like their young players are too good to even do that unless they sit all them too, and then it's like, what are you even doing? Like, what is even the point of this season? So they kind of have to go in the middle of those two paths and just kind of let the chips fall where they may and see who's good enough to clearly be a part of whatever they're going to be when Haliburton does come back, because he's not going to be the same guy, as he's kind of acknowledged.
So I want to get to Haliburton in a second, but the way you describe that kind of makes me feel as if of the teams that are in the middle, or I guess like bottom of the middle, whatever you want to term it, like the Eastern Conference is not good. And I definitely push back on the notion that it's wide open. I think there are two teams that are unproven and a couple of other teams that might be dark horses and a bunch of other teams that kind of stink.
Yeah, it's not wide open. It is wide open to finish in third or fourth.
Yeah, I think that is fair. I think that is the way to describe it. But as you describe the Pacers, I look at them and I just wonder, do they have the smallest gap this season? Like this season only, this is completely a Tyrese Haliburton thing right here. But do they have the smallest gap between what their floor is in terms of how high the floor is and how low the ceiling is conversely?
Yeah, probably, right? And especially with their win total. Like, the Celtics, for example, who are in a similar situation because of Tatum, like they could win if Derek White gets hurt or if Jaylen Brown gets hurt, like they could win 25 games, right? Like
that is on the table for them in a way that I think might not be for the Pacers.
I agree with you. Like it's so hard for them to, because like I said, their top 10 is good. Furphy's right outside there. Then after that, there's a big drop, I suppose. But when you have 11 like good enough players, and if you count James Wiseman as good enough 12, that like they'll survive. So it's just really hard for them to be awful, right? Especially like they'll clean up against your. Even without Haliburton or Turner, they should be way better than Charlotte, Washington, all the crap at the bottom of the East and squeak by those. And they're as good as the Bulls, I'd say. So there's some nice division wins like that. They even last year when Haliburton was out, they went, well, I think 4-4, 4-3. Like they beat Minnesota without him. They beat some good teams, even in his absence, right? The Cavs, he got hurt at halftime of that game and they won in Cleveland, right? During the season.
Them.
So
they were losing at halftime and they crushed the Cavs in the second half of that game.
Right. So they can beat enough teams that they can win. I mean, I'd say their range is 35 to 45, but like that's still in the same like tier of team. You're in the middle of the East. I don't see them going much worse or better than that because unless Siakam is just like a god this year. So, and him being so consistent is part of why their floor is so high too. He was great all of last year.
Yeah, I think that's totally fair. And then as far as Haliburton goes, we know they have come out and said that he's not going to play next year. Obviously, when you tear your Achilles in the final possible day that you could do it in NBA action, game 7 of the finals, going to lead to a long recovery. And there should be no expectation that he's on the floor whatsoever next year. Is there any long-term concern that Tyrese Haliburton has already peaked and is not going to be able to be what he has been, which obviously has been an incredible basketball player?
I mean, has anybody been better post Achilles? Like Durant is the face of recovery from the injury, and he was really fantastic, like all NBA level, obviously. But was he better, straight up better? No, right? Maybe as good. So that's your hope, is that the injury, the recovery from the injury is better than it ever is, and it will always be better. Like next year, it'll even be better than us talking right now, and that he is 25 and he can come back and be, where he was, like second, third team All NBA contender. And his play style is so unique that if he can still just read the game really well and fling the ball around and never turn it over, he'll still be very good, right? So and he's not like a burst to get by you kind of player. So I think that he would hope that he would be close to as good, right? Or as close as is reasonably possible within the injury. But yeah, I mean, like no one is going to hit that peak, and they'll have to have that drop off covered by other players. Nembhard, Nesmith, Mathurin, whoever gets better. The problem is they lost their starting center as well. And so that's why this season is about, learning what you have with your young guys in a way that's like, who actually is a part of the next great Pacers team, who actually can make up for what they lose without Haliburton, and who's a part of the, let's say, center trade package or less important group for the team.
So the Myles Turner stuff, how surprised were you? How surprised were the Pacers when that all went down and he goes to the Milwaukee Bucks via free agency after the Bucks waive and stretch Damian Lillard and do all the maneuvering that they needed to do to make that happen? Because I look at that and, I don't know that I love that for the Milwaukee Bucks. And I think that Turner's value certainly had a lot to do with how good he was alongside Haliburton, which is somebody that the Milwaukee Bucks obviously have no one that's close to in terms of playing style. Now he'll get to play next to Giannis, so I don't necessarily feel bad for the guy, but how surprising of a day was that when all of that came out?
Yeah, very weird. Like I was trying to just get like what the heck is going on details. And so I didn't really tweet until I knew kind of stuff. And people were like calling me like, are you okay? Why have you posted? Like it was a shocking day because of that. People were so concerned just about the whole ecosystem of how this went down. Yeah, it's a very memorable day, right? Like I certainly think they read the market and thought there'd be no one that could pay him as much as them, and they started too low, and that led Turner to have wandering eyes. And look at this, there's the deal he wants. Why would he? If he could have come back, maybe the Pacers would have matched it. I think they would have been close to it, but maybe not all the way up to it. So yeah, I think they were shocked. I don't think they would have negotiated if they didn't want to keep him and planned to keep him, right? As they have said, and as Turner has indicated in the way out. So yeah, I think very surprising. Like even if they don't have Haliburton this year and they're a 40 whatever win team, like Turner is as what I would consider as close to the perfect fit for a Tyrese Haliburton point guard as possible. Somebody who can finish at the basket, dunk a little bit, and space out for three. Like creating options that Haliburton can read quicker than the defense opens up a lot of shots, right? And he even talked about that. He said, I thought my dream fit as a big was Rashawn Holmes. No, it's like a Myles Turner kind of player. So figuring out how they can replace that's going to be hard. And I think they wanted to keep him and we're like, well, crap, we got to pay the tax on Haliburton. This sucks. Let's negotiate. And it really bit them in the butt.
What a compliment for Rashawn Holmes that was to be viewed as the ideal.
Have you
fit
seen this?
Ty
tweeted about it this offseason, like 2 weeks
I didn't
ago.
see it this offseason, but I had heard it before. And it's
one
so
of those
funny
random
because,
accounts that just tweets like nonsense NBA highlights. And I don't mean that as an insult. Like I like those. Tweeted like Rashawn Holmes floaters, and Haliburton like retweeted it, was like the most automatic shot basketball or something like that. They were Kings buddies, man.
Has he seen an Isaiah Hartenstein push shot? Because I
yes,
think
they've played Hartenstein in the playoffs 2 years in a row. They are all about the Isaiah
that is the
Hartenstein
most
push.
that is the most automatic shot in basketball.
That shot looks so
And
weird. So
it
weird.
does,
The
but
Knicks,
it goes to
Cavs. Oh no, he's on the Thunder now. I'm stupid. Never mind. They'll see it at some point again this season.
he played for the Cavs at one point. They have seen it. They're very familiar with it. It is the most automatic shot in basketball.
He did.
I will get you out of here with this. If you were running the Pacers this summer, and obviously the situation in Indiana is very unique because of the Haliburton injury, but is there something that the team did not do or tried to do and couldn't do that you thought should have been done aside from keeping Myles Turner?
No, not really. I mean, my thought was keep Turner, stay close enough to the tax that if it's a disaster after re-signing him, you can get under and do a thing here or there at backup center and figure it out. So honestly, no, like if they had Turner, the rest of their offseason makes so much sense, right? I like the trade they made to get their first back. It makes all the sense for their situation. I don't know enough about the draft, but like Cam Jones looked nice in Summer League. Taylor Peter looked nice in Summer League. Jay Huff's contract is nothing, and he's like a rotation caliber player, and they got him for nothing. Like, that's a good backup five. I would not have paid Isaiah Jackson as much as they did, but they know his recovery better than anybody, and he's like a fine center, a rotation level center. So outside of maybe overpaying him slightly, like I think every move they made makes sense, but all those moves make more sense if Myles Turner is the starting center. So that's where it's a little weird is that the context of it has changed. Their center rotation's about to be Isaiah Jackson and Jay Huff for a team that's like not bad enough to tank. So it's just weird because of that. But no, everything else they did is good. That's why they're great. Like their grade should be bad because the biggest thing they had to do, they messed up. But all the small stuff adds up to like D plus C minus level offseason stuff.
Yeah, I think that's totally fair. And I think that they will be a team right around 40 wins next year. But Tony, thank you so much for doing this. Very much appreciate you coming on Locked On Cavs to talk about the Pacers. Enjoy all your time at my favorite restaurants in downtown Indianapolis.
I will.
Thank you again to John Karalis for stopping by to talk about the Boston Celtics and what their season might look like. And of course, good friend of the show, Tony East, to talk about the Indiana Pacers. If you want more from either of those guys, make sure you go check out their podcasts, Locked On Celtics and Locked On Pacers, for so much more. And on tomorrow's show, we're going to continue the whip around week. We are going to talk Miami Heat, Wes Goldberg going to stop by, and the Milwaukee Bucks with Camille Davis, because the Bucks were one of the more interesting teams in the Eastern Conference this offseason. There's a lot to get into with Camille on tomorrow's show, so make sure you don't miss that. And you can do that by making sure you're subscribed wherever you get your podcasts, Apple, Spotify, or anywhere else. And if you're watching the show on YouTube as we get out of here and you want to help the show, do us a favor. Hit that subscribe button right below right now. Hit the thumbs up button and make sure you hit that notification bell so you don't miss the latest Locked On Cavs content. The show will be back again tomorrow with more of the Eastern Conference Whip Around.